World of Warcraft, the Vogue within. I mean, what? The War within. Anyway, close enough. This expansion is gonna be absolutely unbelievably woke. As we know, the main character of this expansion is gonna be a black, half elf, crippled, empowered female that's gonna tell every man how they should act because they don't understand anything, and she has everything nailed down, and she's awesome. Oh yes. People in the last video I did talking about this subject already told me that they have seen the story, they have seen the gameplay, they have paid attention to it, and yeah, the War Within effectively story-wise is just currently a bunch of girl bosses doing what girl bosses do best, aka solve all the problems instantaneously, put men in their places, and you know, the classic nonsense garbage stuff. Man, World of Warcraft has fallen so heavily, it's absolutely honestly insane. The story is trash, there's no consequences, there's nothing. Again, I will use my favorite example of all time, okay? I did this last video, but I know you love this one, okay? Remember when Jaina got a little bit mad and some sand in her vajayjay because Garrosh Hellscream decided that he's gonna char Terramore or some garbage like that? Yeah. Well, she got all uppity because of it, and then she decided, hey, I'm gonna go absolutely rogue. I'm gonna steal this artifact from my boyfriend Dragoncuck, and then I'm gonna use it to completely submerge Ogrimmar underwater. Okay? And you think that this is, wait, that's actually okay-ish. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, one, it's war crimes, and the Alliance are the good guys because bad story writing, obviously. But the thing is, she's committing genocide, okay? She's killing a bunch of non-hostile, non-warrior orcs, trolls, and horde members. And worst of all, she's also killing a bunch of alliance. Because she does not care. She just wants revenge. And you know what happens? Thrall teleports with her, does a little bit of that talk no jutsu, and then she's like, I was not gonna do it anyway. And that's it. That's the resolution. There's no punishment. There's nothing. After something like this, by the way, the Horde should try to kill her because she's a loose cannon and dangerous. She's a mage that can pretty much teleport all over the planet and get more artifacts of equal power to pull that one off again. 3, she betrayed the Alliance by trying to genociding also their people there. So everyone should want Jaina's head and execute her because she's a loose cannon and dangerous. What happens? Nothing. This is World of Warcraft that we're talking about. There's no consequences, and a woman can do no wrong, obviously. And that is gonna be the War Within.
Of Warcraft's 10th expansion, coming up to its 20th anniversary, is about to release officially. A trilogy of expansions, no less, across the whole World Souls saga, from the War Within to their Midnight, and finally the Last Titan.
Oh,
Retail
boy.
reported some of the highest player counts ever as per a GDC presentation earlier this year, with millions of people actively playing the game. And everything I see through online content, social media, and even previews Blizzard's putting out are showing a game where a lot of people are very hyped for it. We're coming off the back of Dragonflight that got tons of praise overall, and even missed the
It got tons of praise, but it did not sell a single copy. Dragonflight was overall good, even though the story was, as always, predictable crap. I am an evil dragon. I kill people. Actually, you know what? I'm the good guy because I'm a woman and I'm gonna join the good guys. And the good guys are like, you who just killed my stepson. Yas, Queen, join us. Thank you. And there you go. It's so stupid. The story of Dragonflight was just abysmal slob garbage dumpster fire. Okay? It's just so sad and bad. I just can't. And by the way, this is a lie. We watched the video of Bill did the breakdown, and I honestly kind of believe that breakdown. It should be pretty accurate compared to everything from what I saw. And we know that Dragonflight, without Season of Discovery being released, would be the worst selling expansion of all time, probably. Because people are done. You can't have multiple failures of expansions in a row and not have consequences for this. So currently, I'm honestly very, very doubtful that the War Within is gonna be this huge thing that gets people back. I think it's gonna get people back, but I also think it's not gonna be as huge as they are making it out to be. I think this is a blatant line manipulation of data.
Pandaria Remix seemed to have been a hit for the retail version of the game. They've even managed to get Metzum back to make us all forget Shadowland's story and tell us all that it's gonna be okay. Everything seems to be going right after a few years of constant drama and upsets at Blizzard, and Dragonflight seemed to have been the first step in that right direction. But can the War Within and its future expansions carry on that trend and take World of Warcraft into a new era of prosperity for this nearly 2-decade-old MMO? We have had tons of hype before an expansion release.
I mean, there is a shot, but currently, again, our main character for this expansion currently is a black half-elf, a crippled warrior woman that's really cool and you should love her and can do no wrong.
Only to end up being burned. Warlords of Draenor was the biggest culprit of this, but right now I want to cautiously say that things are looking pretty positive.
But absolutely every single time I see a World of Warcraft expansion, I just feel the testosterone leaving my body, okay? This game has negative testosterone, okay? If it went to a doctor, the doctor would be amazed. How are you even alive? How do you even have a penis still, okay? And also, look at this. This is, again, what I hate about World of Warcraft. It's these unbelievably stupid, nonsensical locations, okay? This is not how real life looks. That's one. This is not how mountains look. Second of all, this is not how you... What the fuck? This is architecture. Why is there moss growing off it? Isn't this from the dwarves who would keep it clean and whatnot? I have talked about this previously. The World of Warcraft map current design of its art style is just so oversaturated with absolutely useless filth and shit.
And I have to say, I bet this will be the moment when the most people are going back to check out retail since, well, Classic on its re-release in 2019. We have come full circle at last. It took us a while, but I think we're just about getting there. I mean, if we look at Classic, Cataclysm's going along, but the Phase 1.5 patch, if you could call it that, was pretty thin on content. And Tier 11, as much as I'll always say it's great, has kind of had its moment by now. Season of Discovery is midway through Phase 4, Mists of Pandaria Remix is of course finished, so all roads at the moment really lead to retail. And Blizzard have made a big effort to make this the most accessible version of World of Warcraft to ever have existed.
That's so bullshit, because every version of World of Warcraft after the Lich King has been ultra accessible.
I don't know if you saw many of the advertisements for The War Within leading up to its release. I can't show them on video because they always cause copyright issues, but they made it clear that even if you are a solo player or just don't have the time to do group related content or sit there in a queue, that you can definitely see tons of the game just solo. You can now queue for Arena solo. This was a Dragonflight feature, to be fair, but I just thought I'd give it a mention. There are also solo queue rated battlegrounds as well if you want something competitive but a bit more larger scale. There is a new story mode for the opening raid tier of the expansion. In this you'll get to experience the outcome of the raid and see the lore which takes place. This seems to be what LFR always should have been in my opinion. I hope this goes down well. There is a new system.
The first raid story is a Beyblade and two women, mother and daughter, bitching about each other and being evil, because, you know, that's just how women are.
Delves, we can either go from solo up to 5 players through dungeon type content, which scales up in difficulty as you progress. There are follower dungeons now as well, where you'll have 4 NPC companions, and they'll even take point and lead you through the dungeon if you want them to. This will let you finish off those loose end dungeon quests, get some knowledge of the route through the dungeon and the boss mechanics, or just to test out a new spec and see what works and what doesn't for you. But all of this solo friendliness doesn't take away from the fact that retail or modern or whatever we're calling it these days also has significantly harder content too that needs a properly organized group, such as Mythic Plus or Mythic Raider.
I don't know about that, okay? I was told that Cataclysm dungeons are hard. I played Cataclysm. And none of the dungeons were hard. None of the dungeons on Heroic were hard. After they said that the raids are hard or something like that, well, I got into one raid and that's when I quit playing. We did it on, well, it was normal difficulty. Not a single mechanic even remotely mattered, okay? Now, I understand Mythic is supposed to be hard, but Mythic is just hard because there's a lot of damage. None of the mechanics were hard. It's, man, I I honestly don't know what do they what do people nowadays mean by hard game mechanics. Okay, the only bad thing about game mechanics is the fact that it's really hard to understand finite details of game mechanics for raids sometimes. And if you don't understand what that means, well, maybe these raids are hard for you. I don't know, but yeah, that's the only small problem there, and that's it. None of this seems hard.
It's like Blizzard sat down in a room before the War Within and said, what areas of content exist in this game which are not accessible solo? And then they have made them accessible to a solo player. And I know people are going to say solo in an MMO, that's a bit of an oxymoron, but honestly I can see the game changing with the times and I can't really blame Blizzard for having done this. There's an older player base now, it's inevitable. I bet the average WoW player is over 25 at this point in time. People have more
Please, 30.
And as a result won't have the patience to log in and just sit in a queue for ages or get declined for a group for 30 minutes before they can actually get into some action. And this is the more modern version of the game.
Yeah, but, well, it's inevitable that you're gonna have some problems finding groups and stuff like that when it comes to the actual end-to-end game hardest difficulties. Okay? This is just kind of a nice touch for, you know, the average player who doesn't care.
Game too, so for me there's no problem in it being totally different in its approach from how Classic typically plays out. There's no point in the two games trying to achieve the same thing, it just wouldn't make sense for Blizzard to do that. As for myself trying out the War Within, I feel with retail I'm kind of way out of the loop at the moment. I did play the start of Dragonflight, but I dropped it pretty soon thereafter. There were a few issues with it, such as the character model of the Drakthir just not hitting the mark. Blizzard
Yeah. Hey, play as a dragon. Is this the dragon? Yeah. Oh, it's a twink dragon. Got it. Thank you, I'm out.
created the same issue they've had with druids for years and years, where it was difficult to express any visual appeal or customization with the character when in combat. As far as I know, in the War Within you can stay in your visage, aka your regular form in combat now, but it still seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity. I didn't really follow along with the story too much in Dragonflight, and above all there was just a lot happening in Classic with Wrath of the Lich King and Hardcore and Season of Discovery and Cataclysm. It definitely kept me busy, and it's hard to invest time into two different MMOs at the same time, just by the nature of how time demanding they can be.
Yeah, actually it's pretty easy if you have one character on each realm.
Or at least how time demanding they usually are. I'm not sure the War Within will be that time intensive, but whenever I do play retail, I am kind of blown away a bit by just how much new stuff there is. It's kind of obvious to say, but
oh, there's too much new stuff. That's why people don't want to play retail. It's scary, and this is one of the reasons why I think that old games are so attractive, because you know everything that's happening in old games. You come back to Classic, Season of Discovery or whatever, and you're like, I know stuff here. And then you come back, and then you come back to retail, and you're like, hey, here's 50 different things that I need to know about, but I don't, and there's I mean, I didn't even know these 5 things existed, okay? There's not enough explanation, and when there is explanation, typically the tutorials are shit.
But there's a cutscene here, there's a voice acted character there, there's a new story arc here, and it always just ends up making me think, what if? What if this same level of new content, attention to detail?
And that's one of the reasons why I think the games like New World completely fail, by the way, because I played New World, and New World is actually a decent leveling experience, kind of fun. But the moment you hit maximum level, the game just collapses, okay? You, as a new player, have no idea, first of all, what you're supposed to be doing. I remember playing New World, hitting max level, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do now? I don't know if I have uncovered all the dungeons even, because you need to uncover them first, and that's stupid. I try to look on YouTube what I'm supposed to do as level 60 in New World, and I watched like 4 videos, and one of them only 20 minutes in actually told me something about what I'm supposed to actually do at level 60 and how I'm supposed to progress. It's so dumb. Man, when you don't know what you're... What the fuck is this thing also? Can we kick it?
And effort was given to anything in their classic world, but at a first glance, War Within seems your typical retail polished experience, good music score, a lot new to see and do, and it's off to a strong start. The biggest criticism for me would be I'm not a huge fan of underground zones, and I think the Ringing Deeps at times looks very similar to Zaralek Caverns from Dragonflight. I guess a largely grey cave colour palette will do that though. In terms of other changes, there's now dynamic flight, which means your mounts from pre-Dragonflight will now work as if they had dragon riding, which is amazing. I've always rated dragon riding as a really good feature, so I'm happy to see that. There's the
And the funny part, they stole that from Guild Wars.
new warband feature, which makes your alt army a bit more cohesive, and you have way more ways to share things between your various different characters now. And as a standard now in retail, you can join guilds cross-realm, you can do activities cross-realm. It doesn't really matter which faction you're playing or which server you're playing on anymore, which makes finding groups or joining up with friends so much easier than it's ever been before. As for the story so far, I'm not going to go over any spoilers you wouldn't have been able to know about pre-early access release, but
Dude, look at Anduin being a cuck right there at the end and looking at Troll's Jesus back of the head and being like, God, I'm gay now.
Zalataf seems as though she's an antagonist, or at least we assume she's an antagonist, that still has quite a lot of growth.
Okay, listen, Zalatav was probably the only good part about the World of Warcraft lore, but it kind of started collapsing when they tried to start fleshing it out, okay? It's better than the Jailer, but it's still a little bit much, okay? And Zalatav is honestly one of the few characters that should be a villain and then join the good side because you don't want to lose her. It is what it is, okay?
To do. Do you remember
My girl Sylvanas is still fucking dead. Anduin's a cuck. Thrall, I think, has kids and now has a beer belly, who honestly knows. Jane is only good for the hentai, and there you have it.
P-Boy back in BFA, that random troll shaman who appeared in the cinematic and then he became a fan favorite, and then Blizzard ended up reusing him in multiple cutscenes and in-game story
I never liked him.
points. Zalataf's kind of that. She's another fan favorite back from Legion, but instead of her getting some cutscenes, she's getting a few expansions. And from what we saw of her pre-release, all she really did was smirk in a few cinematics and make some spider people look a bit more human. Or I suppose crab people if you have the arachnophobia mode turned on. Then again, Blizzard do have to get their new bad guys from somewhere, but they do need a build
Arachnophobia mode? See, this is why we can't even have women's in paintings, so they need to be turned into fruit.
Up in the story, and I still think we're very early on. Think of some of the great bad guys of the past, such as Garrosh or Gul'dan. In many examples that appeared in previous versions of the game or have had an entire expansion to build them up, and that's what I'm expecting we'll get.
Gul'dan's a lot meh, honestly, in my opinion, because he's just an orc that wants power and he always fucks himself over. It's kind of dumb.
Get with Zalataf. I mean, out of the trilogy in the World Soul Saga, the second expansion is called Midnight, so in some ways I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up winning whatever happens in the war with.
Well, yeah, she's obviously gonna win. Everyone knows she's gonna win. The War Within establishes are poor, are not poor, women cannot be poor, are brave heroines that are gonna fight Zalataf, and then Zalataf wins. Probably a bunch of characters that we like the least, aka all the men, are gonna get killed. Good. And then we barely itch a win at the final showdown in the third expansion. It's gonna be great.
Within, but that's just all speculation at this point in time. Again, maybe she's not even the antagonist. Whatever we get though, I certainly hope it's better than Shadowlands. If you have been thinking about getting back into the War Within though, for me the hardest bit has always been, well, just getting back into it in the first place, if I have to be honest. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and when you first get into the game and there's the newer UI which you may not have messed about with too much, and then you need to redo your add-ons, and then you open your spellbook and there's about a million different spells, and you look at your
oh yeah. Like, how do you play your game with only this many bindings? It's just strange to me.
Balance, and you're just overwhelmed by how much different stuff there is. I have to say, at least with the talents though, you can pick a starter build from the little drop down menu in the bottom left, and that'll give you something which is pretty straightforward. I found that often with these talent trees, they look very intimidating, but actually when you get down to the gameplay, they tend to be fairly simple. At least for some classes. Some specs are way more complicated than others. I think something which will put a bit of a dampener on the War Within though is Blizzard selling an early access, because as much as they're trying to sound as though it won't make a difference, ultimately it will make a big difference for.
Well, if you're competitive, which means, you know, roughly 5 people in the world are competitive in World of Warcraft at this point, well, you know, you are gaining an advantage.
All kinds of players, from people who want to make gold, gear up a bit early on, to people who are invested in the story of World of Warcraft. But from Blizzard's point of view, they get to A, avoid congestion issues with too many people trying to log in at the same time during an expansion launch, and B, make loads of extra money for not really doing anything extra, so seems like a big win-win for them. I can pretty much guarantee you this will happen in every expansion moving forwards. But that's it, just a few early thoughts on the War Within and its features.
Oh yeah, this is the new Alaria Windrunner, I think, or what's her face?
Is from somebody who.
I hope Magni gets pushed down a goddamn mountain and then he can die finally. Same with Anduin.
Who's pretty much just played Classic for the past few years. I think the biggest strength this expansion, and what's ultimately going to make it very successful, is the choice Blizzard have enabled. Whether you're limited on time and want something fast, or whether you're more engaged and want some harder content, this expansion should offer both. And if Blizzard can deliver on a solid story to open up the World Soul Saga trilogy, I think they're very much onto a winner here.
Yeah, they would be, but is that gonna happen? Well, I'm currently pressing X to doubt. Anyway, Billy, bye!